Every morning, I sat at the same table in the corner of the local coffee shop, the scent of freshly brewed coffee swirling around me like a familiar embrace. The barista, with her bright pink hair and cheerful smile, always greeted me as if I were a regular patron of a long-lost club. I ordered my usual, a tall Americano with just a splash of cream, and settled into my routine. This little ritual offered a sliver of comfort amidst the encroaching monotony of my life. At home, the silence was palpable. My husband, Mark, often retreated to his office after dinner, lost in spreadsheets and emails. The television hummed in the background as I flipped through channels, searching for something to hold my attention. It felt like we were living parallel lives under one roof, each lost in our own thoughts and routines. Days turned into weeks, and weeks melted into months. I could hardly remember when we last shared an evening that felt alive. I glanced out the window at the bustling street outside. Portland was vibrant this time of year. Festivals filled with music and laughter were popping up like wildflowers after a spring rain. Yet here I sat, trapped within an emotional fog that dulled even the brightest colors around me. My friends often commented on how lucky I was to have a stable marriage and a comfortable life. But stability had become synonymous with stagnation. The phone buzzed on the table, jolting me from my reverie. An old friend from college had sent a message after years of silence. "Hey. Just passing through Portland next week, would love to catch up." A flicker of excitement ignited within me at the thought of reconnecting with someone who remembered me as vibrant and full of life. As I contemplated how much had changed since those carefree days, Mark entered the shop, his brow furrowed as he scanned the room for me. He smiled when he spotted me but quickly returned to his serious demeanor as he approached. "Hey," he said simply before taking a seat across from me. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like an obligation than genuine warmth. "Busy day?" he asked while glancing at his watch. "Same old," I said with a shrug. "Just enjoying my coffee." He nodded but seemed distracted by something beyond our conversation, perhaps work or some unspoken worry buried beneath his calm exterior. I studied him as he absent-mindedly stirred his drink. There was distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. As we sat in silence, my mind wandered back to my friend's message and what it might mean for me, a chance to escape this dull routine even for just an hour or two. But would reconnecting with an old friend be enough to fill the void? After Mark excused himself to take a work call outside, I noticed someone enter the cafe, a tall man with tousled dark hair and an easy smile that lit up his face as he greeted familiar patrons around him. It took only moments for recognition to dawn on me. It was Jason, Mark's colleague from work who occasionally joined us for dinner parties when schedules aligned. He caught my eye and approached our table after spotting Mark's empty chair. "Hey there. Is Mark around?" His voice was warm and inviting. "He stepped out for a moment," I replied cautiously. "Ah," Jason said with an easy laugh that made my heart flutter unexpectedly. "I'll wait then." He slid into Mark's seat without waiting for permission. We exchanged pleasantries about work and family as if we were long-lost friends rather than mere acquaintances bound by our connection to Mark. Something about Jason's presence felt refreshing. It reminded me of what it felt like to be seen, to be engaged in conversation that didn't revolve around spreadsheets or household chores. "So how's everything going?" he asked genuinely as we delved deeper into small talk about local events and upcoming festivals. "It's fine," I admitted after hesitating too long over how much truth to reveal about my life's current state of dissatisfaction. "Just fine?" He raised an eyebrow playfully, encouraging me to elaborate further without pushing too hard. I shrugged again but found myself drawn into his gaze. He seemed genuinely interested in what lay beneath my surface-level responses. "You know how it is," I finally said softly, "sometimes life just becomes predictable." "Predictable can be comforting," he countered thoughtfully but added quickly, "but it can also feel stifling." There was something almost daring in his tone that made me wonder if he sensed more than just casual discontent behind my words. Before long, Mark returned from his call. Tension hung in the air as Jason excused himself politely, but not before shooting me one last encouraging smile that lingered longer than necessary in my mind. As we left the cafe together, Mark oblivious to any undercurrents, I felt something shift within myself. Curiosity stirred deep inside like embers waiting for kindling. Was it possible that this brief encounter could spark something more? That evening at home was filled with small talk over dinner, Mark discussing work while I nodded along absent-mindedly, but all I could think about was Jason's easy laughter and how effortlessly he had drawn me out of my shell, even if just for a moment. The next few days passed slowly until Friday came knocking on my door once again, the weekend beckoning with promises of freedom yet still tethered by obligations at home. As plans unfolded for Portland's annual Rose Festival, where vibrant blooms would soon line every street corner, anticipation bubbled within me alongside unease at what might come next. Uncertainty clouded any clarity about what path lay ahead. And then there it was, another message from Jason asking if I'd be attending this year's festival. A simple question igniting sparks of curiosity wrapped tightly around feelings long buried beneath layers of boredom and routine waiting patiently for release. In those fleeting moments between excitement and dread stood choices yet unmade. All it took was one encounter to unravel ties tightly woven over years spent chasing stability while longing silently for something more profound than mere existence itself. A chance worth exploring despite consequences looming just beyond reach. The festival was just around the corner, and the city buzzed with anticipation. Vibrant banners fluttered against the crisp Portland sky, while the scent of roasted coffee wafted through the air. I found myself strolling through the local market, caught in a whirlwind of colors and sounds that felt almost foreign. Yet, beneath this lively surface, my heart was heavy with uncertainty. Jason's message lingered in my mind. Would I go to the festival? The thought both thrilled and terrified me. I had always attended with my husband, sharing moments that now felt distant and hollow. This year, however, I sensed something different, a pull toward Jason that seemed to beckon me from across the crowded street. We had exchanged glances at work, playful banter that hid deeper emotions. Each time he smiled at me, a flutter ignited within. It was an unfamiliar feeling that stirred something dormant inside. As I wandered past stalls filled with handmade crafts and artisanal foods, I couldn't help but recall our last interaction. The way his eyes sparkled when he mentioned how much he admired my taste in art. I paused by a booth displaying colorful ceramics, my fingers tracing the edges of a delicate vase. The vendor chatted amiably about her craft while I nodded absently, my thoughts drifting back to Jason. What would it be like to explore this connection further? To step beyond the boundaries of my mundane existence and embrace something new? A thrill coursed through me at the thought. Later that evening, I found myself sitting on our couch beside my husband. He flipped through channels absent-mindedly while I stared blankly at the screen. The silence between us stretched thin, filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. It was during these quiet moments that I felt most trapped, like a moth caught in a jar. "Are you okay?" he asked suddenly, glancing sideways at me. "Just thinking," I replied softly. He nodded but didn't press further. It was our routine, a dance of avoidance we had perfected over years of marriage. Yet tonight felt different. An undercurrent of tension buzzed between us as if we were both aware of the widening gap that threatened to engulf us. As sleep eluded me later that night, thoughts of Jason consumed my mind. What if we crossed a line? What if this flirtation led somewhere dangerous? But then again, wasn't danger what made life exciting? The idea gnawed at me until exhaustion finally claimed me. The next day brought unexpected clarity when Jason approached me during lunch break at work. He leaned casually against the counter as we chatted about mundane office matters before shifting his gaze to mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "we should grab coffee sometime, just us." I hesitated for a moment, fear mingled with excitement within me. "Sure," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. His smile widened as he suggested Friday afternoon after work, a time when daylight faded into twilight, mirroring our own lives slowly dimming into routine darkness. As Friday approached, anticipation twisted inside me like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. The thought of being alone with Jason sent waves of exhilaration coursing through me but also left a residue of guilt clinging stubbornly to my conscience. When Friday finally arrived and work ended for the day, every step toward our chosen cafe felt monumental, each footfall echoing doubts and desires alike. The cafe buzzed with activity as people milled about sipping their drinks while laughter filled the air like music. It all seemed so vibrant compared to what lay beneath my own skin. Jason arrived shortly after I settled into a cozy corner booth near a window overlooking bustling streets below. His presence lit up the room in ways I hadn't anticipated. His easy smile made everything feel lighter somehow. We talked about everything and nothing, art exhibits we'd attended separately over time and mutual friends who shared stories about their lives outside work, all while sipping our coffees brewed perfectly for each moment spent together. Yet amidst casual conversation lurked an undeniable tension. Each shared glance ignited sparks that danced between us like fireflies on warm summer nights, fleeting yet intoxicating in their brief existence. As our laughter faded into comfortable silence punctuated by occasional sips from steaming mugs, something shifted within me. A moment suspended in time where hesitation melted away under his gaze until all that remained was raw desire mingled with fear of consequence lurking just beyond reach. And then it happened. We kissed, softly at first before deepening into something more urgent as if years' worth of longing poured forth in one single act. A collision of emotions bursting forth from hidden corners where they had long been buried beneath layers of duty and expectation. The world around us faded away until there was only Jason and me, the warmth radiating from him enveloping me like sunlight breaking through clouds after days spent shrouded in grayness. The thrill coursing through every fiber of my being overshadowing guilt momentarily forgotten in favor of pure sensation experienced fully for once without restraint or reservation weighing heavily upon shoulders accustomed only to responsibility rather than pleasure derived from living fully present within. Fleeting moments shared intimately between two souls yearning for connection amid chaos surrounding them both outside this small sanctuary carved out just for us alone together here today amidst bustling energy swirling around outside these walls. But reality crashed back as quickly as it had fled when we pulled apart breathless, emotions tangled together left unresolved between us now hanging precariously on thin threads woven tightly around choices yet unmade. The weight pressing down heavily upon both hearts caught up within this whirlwind created by simple act born purely out desire unbound by consequence lingering just beyond reach. The bar buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. I took a sip of my drink, the bitterness of the cocktail matching the bittersweet taste of my choices. The dim lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that danced across the faces of patrons lost in their own worlds. I felt both invisible and hyper-aware, a paradox that gnawed at my insides. Across from me, Tom leaned back in his chair, his easy smile igniting a warmth that spread through me. We had shared more than just fleeting glances and casual conversations. Our connection had deepened into something unspoken yet palpable. The thrill of our secret lingered between us like an electric current, and despite the weight of guilt pressing down on my chest, I found myself drawn to him. "Are you okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing slightly as he studied my face. "Just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The truth was more complicated than I could articulate. My mind raced with thoughts of home, of my husband's quiet demeanor and the routine that had become our life together. Tom reached across the table, his fingers brushing against mine for just a moment too long. "You're not alone in this," he said softly, an invitation wrapped in concern. I pulled my hand back as if stung by electricity, caught between longing and fear. "I know," I managed to say, though part of me wondered if he truly understood what lay beneath the surface. The conversation shifted to work-related matters, but even amidst discussions about projects and deadlines, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was shifting beneath me. Tom's laughter was infectious, but it only served as a reminder of what I lacked at home, the lightness we once shared now buried under layers of unspoken resentment. As we finished our drinks and prepared to leave, Tom suggested we attend an upcoming work event together, a gathering meant for colleagues and their significant others. My heart raced at the thought. It felt like stepping onto a tightrope stretched high above uncertainty. "I'll think about it," I replied carefully, knowing full well that attending would complicate everything further. Outside, Portland's streets pulsed with life. Street musicians played soulful melodies while couples strolled hand in hand beneath twinkling lights strung overhead. The city felt alive in a way that contrasted sharply with the silence at home where conversations dwindled into mundane exchanges about grocery lists and bills. As we walked side by side toward my car parked nearby, Tom's presence enveloped me like a warm blanket against the chill of evening air. "You should come," he urged again as we reached my vehicle. "It'll be fun." "I'll let you know," I said again, but couldn't help but feel drawn to the idea. The thought of being seen with him ignited something deep within me that had long been dormant. With one last lingering glance exchanged between us, a silent acknowledgement of what had passed between us, I slipped into my car and drove away from him, but not from the tumultuous feelings swirling inside me. At home later that night, silence greeted me like an old friend as I stepped through the door. My husband sat on the couch engrossed in some late-night show. His focus was unwavering, as if he were unaware of my presence or perhaps simply choosing not to acknowledge it. "Hey," I said softly as I hung up my coat. "Hey," he replied without looking up from his screen. I moved through our small living space quietly. Each step felt heavy with unspoken words hanging thickly in the air around us. As I settled into an armchair across from him, a familiar ache settled in. The realization that we were two people navigating separate worlds under one roof. He glanced up finally. There was something unreadable in his expression, a flicker of awareness or perhaps just fatigue from another long day at work. Either way, it struck me how little we truly communicated anymore beyond surface-level exchanges. "How was your day?" he asked casually before returning his attention to whatever drama unfolded on screen. "It was fine," I answered mechanically while thoughts of Tom danced just out of reach. How easy it would be to slip back into those moments filled with laughter instead of this oppressive silence suffocating any chance for connection here at home. As sleep crept upon me later that night, my mind racing with images from both lives, I found myself torn between two realities. One where familiarity bred comfort but also complacency. Another where excitement beckoned enticingly yet threatened everything built over years spent together with someone who once made my heart race too before time dulled those edges into routine. Days passed uneventfully after that night until Friday rolled around. The day of Tom's work event loomed ahead like an impending storm full of possibility yet tinged with dread at what might unfold should I choose to attend. The morning sunlight streamed through kitchen windows illuminating breakfast preparations while casting shadows across our small table where we sat together yet worlds apart once more. Each bite swallowed down accompanied by unsaid thoughts swirling around us both like ghosts haunting this space we occupied together yet separately now for far too long. "Are you going out tonight?" he asked suddenly breaking through my reverie as if sensing my distraction though remaining oblivious to its true cause. A question laced with curiosity rather than accusation which surprised me more than anything else could have done right then. "Just a work thing," I replied carefully keeping details vague hoping not to stir any further inquiries or suspicions about who might be involved beyond mere colleagues sharing drinks after hours. Nothing more than innocent camaraderie on paper though reality proved otherwise entirely different altogether. As evening approached and preparations began for what lay ahead tonight, I dressed deliberately choosing something flattering yet understated wanting neither too bold nor too plain simply aiming for balance reflecting both sides vying for attention within myself. The woman yearning for excitement clashing against one seeking stability amid chaos threatening her very existence now. Arriving at the venue felt surreal. Lights twinkled against darkening skies while laughter echoed inside, mingling harmoniously, creating an atmosphere charged with anticipation. A world where anything seemed possible if only willing enough to step outside boundaries previously set forth by expectations held tightly until now. Navigating through clusters filled mostly by younger faces buzzing excitedly around tables laden down, heavily laden plates overflowing, drinks spilling over edges. It all blended together, creating vibrant energy surrounding us both, drawing nearer toward one another amidst chaos unfolding before our eyes. There stood Tom, leaning casually against a bar counter, scanning room filled with familiar faces, his smile brightening instantly upon spotting me entering through doorway framed perfectly against backdrop illuminated brightly behind him, creating almost ethereal glow surrounding figure standing confidently, waiting patiently until finally making eye contact. Locking gazes firmly together, unbroken even amidst bustling atmosphere surrounding us both. "Glad you came," he exclaimed, stepping closer, offering genuine warmth radiating outward, wrapping around tightly, ensnaring, heart racing wildly beneath layers carefully constructed facade, hiding true feelings buried deep inside these walls built up over years spent trying desperately hold on to something, slipping away slowly right before eyes without warning. And then, without thinking further, without considering consequences looming ahead, we kissed right there amidst laughter echoing all around us, blending seamlessly into surroundings, fading away completely, leaving only sensation lingering behind, reminding us how easily boundaries blurred when desire took hold, pushing past limits set forth earlier, becoming nothing more than distant memories slipping away rapidly beyond reach now. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, casting a soft glow on the breakfast table. I stood there, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, one I'd had for years, its chipped rim a testament to countless mornings spent in this house. The aroma filled the air, yet it did little to lift the heaviness that lingered in my chest. My husband sat across from me, reading the newspaper, his brow furrowed in concentration. He hadn't looked up since I entered the room. The silence stretched between us like an unbridgeable chasm. I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly, thinking of last night and how everything had shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. My heart raced at the memory of how we spent the night together, an escape from reality that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The thrill of it pulsed through me like a second heartbeat, but alongside that was an undercurrent of guilt that threatened to drown me. I glanced at him again, trying to decipher what lay behind his unreadable expression. Did he know? Was he aware of my secret rendezvous with his colleague? The thought gnawed at me as I took a sip of my coffee, its bitterness mirroring my internal conflict. "Are you going to talk to me today?" he finally asked, breaking the silence with a tone that was neither angry nor affectionate. Just flat. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "What do you want to talk about?" My voice sounded distant even to my own ears. He shrugged, folding the newspaper neatly before placing it on the table. "I don't know anything other than this silence." There was a hint of frustration in his tone now. I wanted to scream about everything weighing on me, the affair, my dissatisfaction with our marriage, and the looming fear that everything would unravel if I wasn't careful. Instead, I forced a smile and said nothing. After breakfast, I decided a walk would clear my mind. Portland's streets buzzed with life as people rushed past me, some heading to work, others enjoying their day off. The vibrant colors of fall leaves contrasted sharply with my muted emotions as I wandered aimlessly towards the coffee shop where I often met him. Inside, the familiar scent enveloped me like an old friend. It was comforting yet suffocating all at once. I ordered my usual and settled into a corner booth by the window where I could watch people pass by while grappling with thoughts swirling in my mind like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind. What was happening between us? Between him and me? Each moment spent with him felt electric, every stolen glance sent shivers down my spine. But then there was reality, the family we built together over years of shared laughter and struggles, and it loomed large in comparison. As I sat there lost in thought, my phone buzzed on the table, a message from him. "Can we meet later?" My heart skipped a beat at his words. What did he want? Did he sense something had changed? I typed back quickly, yes. The rest of the day dragged on until evening fell over Portland like a heavy blanket smothering any warmth left in our home. When he arrived at our meeting spot, a small bar tucked away from prying eyes, I felt both anticipation and dread coil tightly around me. He looked handsome as always. His smile lit up his face when he saw me walk through the door. We found a quiet booth in the back where we could talk without being overheard. "I've missed you," he said softly as we settled into our seats. My stomach twisted at those words. They were both comforting and alarming all at once. "I've missed you too," came out more easily than expected despite everything swirling inside me. We talked for hours, about work projects, mutual friends, and trivial things that seemed meaningless compared to what lay beneath our surface conversations. But eventually, inevitably, we drifted back to us, the unspoken tension hanging heavily between us like an uninvited guest. "I need to know where this is going," he said suddenly, leaning closer across the table as if sharing a secret meant only for us. My heart raced. This was it, the moment where everything could change yet again depending on how I responded. "I don't know," I admitted quietly. His eyes searched mine for answers that seemed elusive even to myself until finally he broke through that barrier separating us. "You have feelings for your husband too?" The question hung there suspended in time, a mirror reflecting back all my fears and doubts about what we were doing together outside those walls built around our lives so carefully over years spent navigating mundane routines filled with unspoken resentments festering beneath surfaces polished smooth by time, alone spent together without connection deep enough anymore. Yes, escaped from lips before logic could intervene but not without consequence. Guilt washed over me anew like cold water splashing against skin freshly exposed after being hidden away too long, all while knowing deep down inside heart still belonged somewhere else entirely. "Then why are we doing this?" His voice trembled slightly as if realizing truth behind words spoken aloud now echoed louder than any silence ever could fill space between two souls desperately seeking solace without knowing cost involved might be too steep after all. "I don't know." The frustration bubbled over before spilling out uncontrollably, a torrent unleashed leaving nothing but raw honesty laid bare upon table between us, two souls navigating tangled web spun around lives intertwined yet frayed edges threatening unraveling completely if not handled delicately enough. In that moment something shifted within him too. Understanding dawned across features softened by vulnerability revealing cracks formed over years spent hiding behind facades built high enough no one could see what lay beneath surface-level interactions anymore. And then just like before, without thinking further, we kissed again. A brief moment where nothing else mattered except warmth shared between two bodies desperate for connection amidst chaos surrounding them threatening pull apart everything once held dear now slipping away faster than either could hold on to tightly enough. But tonight felt different somehow. Shadows loomed larger than life itself casting doubt upon future choices made while standing firmly rooted ground beneath feet feeling increasingly unstable under weight carried forward into unknown territory ahead waiting patiently just beyond reach. The evening air was thick with uncertainty as I sat on the edge of my bed, staring blankly at the wall. Thoughts raced through my mind, each one more disorienting than the last. The kiss with my husband's colleague lingered like a ghost, haunting me with its implications. I had crossed a line, and now I was left to grapple with the consequences. What had started as innocent flirtation had spiraled into something far more complex. The thrill of attention from someone new had been intoxicating, but now it felt like a noose tightening around my neck. My husband's words about diversity in our marriage echoed in my ears. Did he truly mean it, or was it a calculated move, knowing full well about my secret? I glanced at the clock. It was nearly time for dinner. The routine of our evenings felt suffocating now, a stark contrast to the excitement I had experienced just days before. I took a deep breath and stood up, forcing myself to move toward the kitchen. As I prepared a simple meal, pasta and sauce, I wondered if he could sense the shift in me. Each clatter of pots and pans seemed amplified in the silence of our home. When he finally walked through the door, his casual greeting felt almost foreign. "Hey," he said, dropping his bag on the chair. He looked tired but content, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing within me. "Hi," I replied, trying to sound normal despite the weight of secrets pressing down on me. Dinner passed uneventfully. We exchanged pleasantries about work and our day-to-day lives while I fought to keep my mind from drifting back to him, the colleague who had ignited this fire within me. Each bite felt heavy as if it were made of lead rather than food. Afterward, we settled into our usual routine. He retreated to the living room for television while I cleaned up in silence. My heart raced as thoughts swirled around what might happen if he confronted me about my infidelity, or worse yet, if he already knew. Then came an unexpected knock at our door. I glanced at him. Confusion flickered across his face as he got up to answer it. My stomach knotted with anxiety as I wiped my hands on a towel and joined him by the door. Standing there was Mark, my husband's friend from college days, a man who had always carried an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. He smiled broadly when he saw us. "Hey. Hope I'm not interrupting anything," he said cheerily as if showing up unannounced were completely normal. "No, not at all," my husband replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. I forced a smile and stepped aside to let Mark in, trying to mask my discomfort with polite conversation while internally panicking about how much he might know or suspect. "What brings you here?" my husband asked as Mark moved into our living room. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by," Mark said casually. "Plus, I heard some interesting news today." His eyes flickered between us mischievously. "What news?" My husband leaned forward slightly, curiosity piqued. "Oh, just some chatter at work about your recent projects," Mark continued nonchalantly but with an undertone that hinted at something deeper, something potentially damaging if they were talking about me too. I shifted uncomfortably and excused myself under the pretense of getting drinks from the kitchen while their conversation continued. As I poured water into glasses, I strained to hear snippets of their exchange filtering through the doorway. "Been good seeing you around lately," Mark said lightly before adding something more serious that sent chills down my spine. "You're lucky she's still interested after all these years." My heart sank further into dread. Did Mark know? Was this all just innocent banter or something more sinister? I returned with drinks in hand but found them both silent as I entered, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken tension. "Thanks," Mark said as I handed him a glass. His gaze held mine for just a moment longer than necessary before shifting back to my husband. "So what else is new?" My husband attempted to steer the conversation away from whatever awkwardness hung between us like fog on a cold morning. Mark shrugged casually but didn't let go of that sly grin that made me feel exposed under scrutiny. "Just work stuff mostly, though there's been some talk about new hires." He paused dramatically before adding pointedly, "and some old flames resurfacing." The implication hung thick in the air like smoke from an extinguished candle, the kind that leaves behind only memories and bitterness when snuffed out too soon. I could feel heat rising in my cheeks. Embarrassment mixed with fear coursed through me like electricity sparking against skin too sensitive for comfort. "Old flames?" My husband echoed curiously but without suspicion, "At least not yet," but there was always that nagging feeling lurking beneath his calm demeanor. "Yeah," Mark replied nonchalantly as he leaned back against the couch, arms crossed over his chest confidently like someone who held all cards close. "You never know what might happen when people reconnect." The words hung ominously between us, a reminder that secrets have a way of surfacing when least expected, and suddenly everything felt precarious again. I took another sip from my glass. Its coolness did little to soothe mounting anxiety clawing at me from within, a reminder that choices made cannot be undone easily nor forgotten quickly either way. As we continued talking about mundane topics, the weather, upcoming events, I couldn't shake off how closely intertwined our lives had become without any clear boundaries anymore separating us from entanglement beyond control entirely. Eventually Mark excused himself after lingering longer than necessary. His presence felt like both comfort and threat simultaneously, and once again silence enveloped our home like fog rolling in off Portland's waterfront after sunset, casting shadows everywhere. Left alone together again now finally provided space for confrontation or revelation, but instead lingered awkwardness filled every corner until eventually dissolved into stillness broken only by clock ticking relentlessly onward, reminding us how time waits for no one, not even those afraid of facing truth head-on. "What do you think?" my husband asked, suddenly breaking through quiet tensions surrounding us both, now feeling palpable enough, almost touchable, even though words themselves remained locked away somewhere deep inside where fear kept them hidden, tightly guarded against exposure. But what could I say? How could any response convey complexity swirling beneath surface? Instead, all that escaped lips barely audible came out barely above whisper. "About what?" He studied me carefully, then sighed heavily, letting weight settle upon shoulders visibly worn down by burdens carried far too long already. "About us." His voice, steady yet strained, carried meaning far beyond mere words spoken aloud. It conveyed vulnerability stripped bare, leaving nothing left unseen between two people who once shared everything freely without hesitation whatsoever. And suddenly clarity pierced through chaos surrounding life lived so long without true connection anymore found. It dawned upon realization, dawning bright, illuminating path forward where choices lay ahead, waiting patiently, beckoning toward unknown future-filled possibilities yet undiscovered. The conversation lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. My husband's words echoed in my mind, a steady reminder of the life I had built and the fractures that threatened to tear it apart. I could see the flicker of his vulnerability, a stark contrast to the facade I had been maintaining for so long. Yet, as I sat across from him at our kitchen table, the warmth of familiarity felt like a shroud suffocating me. What was it that had driven us to this point? The mundane rhythm of our lives had dulled my senses, leaving me grasping for something, anything, that resembled excitement. My thoughts wandered back to my colleague, whose presence ignited a spark I hadn't felt in years. The thrill of our secret exchanges pulled me deeper into a world where my desires were laid bare, but at what cost? I glanced out the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Portland's weather mirrored my turmoil, dark clouds looming overhead while life continued around me. A part of me longed for clarity amidst this chaos. The coffee shop down the street beckoned, filled with familiar faces and comforting aromas that promised solace. As if on cue, my phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from my colleague, suggesting we meet later that day for coffee. Tension coiled within me. I had become accustomed to these moments of escape, yet now they felt laden with consequence. What if he wanted more? He had hinted at something deeper during our last encounter, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep pretending everything was fine at home. I found myself drawn into memories of our recent conversations, how he listened intently as I shared fragments of my life. He seemed genuinely interested in who I was beyond being just a wife or mother. He saw me as a person deserving of attention and affection. But did that justify betraying my husband? The guilt gnawed at me like an insatiable hunger. My thoughts shifted back to my husband's earlier words about diversity in our relationship. Did he truly mean it? Was he aware of my feelings for someone else? It felt like walking on a tightrope stretched thin between two worlds, one where stability reigned and another where passion thrived but threatened to consume everything in its path. I decided to reach out to an old friend who knew both me and my husband well. Perhaps she could offer perspective on his intentions or even help clarify mine. We arranged to meet at one of those cozy coffee shops downtown, a place filled with laughter and warmth that contrasted sharply with the chill running through me. As I took my seat across from her later that afternoon, she greeted me with her usual enthusiasm, but her smile dimmed slightly when she noticed my expression. "What's going on?" she asked gently after we exchanged pleasantries. I hesitated before pouring out my heart about everything, the affair, the emotional disconnect with my husband, and how torn I felt between two lives colliding within me. "I think he knows," I said finally, biting my lip as uncertainty washed over me like cold water. She leaned back thoughtfully before speaking again. "You've both changed over time. Sometimes people see what they want to see or choose not to see things altogether." Her words hung heavily between us as she continued, "But if he is aware, maybe you need to confront him directly instead of skirting around it." I nodded slowly, absorbing her advice while feeling an inexplicable weight lift slightly off my chest. Perhaps facing this head-on would bring clarity, or perhaps it would only deepen the chaos swirling around us. Just then, another text pinged on my phone. "Can we talk tonight? There's something important we need to discuss." It was from him, the colleague whose presence sent shivers down my spine but also made me feel alive again. The choice loomed before me like an open door leading into darkness or light. Stepping through would change everything irrevocably. My heart raced as I weighed what lay ahead against what was familiar yet increasingly suffocating. Later that evening at home, tension crackled in the air like static electricity as I prepared dinner alongside my husband. His casual banter felt strained, every word seemed laden with double meanings that left unspoken questions hanging between us. "Are you okay?" he asked suddenly, concern flickering across his face as he caught sight of mine, a mask slipping momentarily away revealing vulnerability underneath. "Yeah," I replied too quickly, forcing a smile while feeling anything but fine inside. After dinner ended uneasily without much conversation beyond polite small talk about work and chores awaiting us tomorrow morning, our lives intertwined yet feeling so separate, I retreated into our bedroom under the guise of wanting some quiet time alone. But there was no peace waiting for me there. Instead, thoughts spiraled furiously around every possible outcome stemming from choices lying ahead. Would confronting him lead toward reconciliation or further distance? What if everything unraveled completely once those truths were spoken aloud? Just then came another ping from my phone. A reminder about meeting up with him later tonight sent chills racing through me again, mixed with exhilaration tinged by dread all at once. As night fell softly outside, casting shadows across walls surrounding us both, two lives living parallel yet apart, I couldn't shake off feeling trapped within boundaries crafted by years spent nurturing comfort over passion while yearning desperately for something more real than mere existence alone. When finally darkness enveloped everything outside, including myself lost somewhere between two worlds, I made up mind resolutely. Tonight would change everything one way or another. And just as those thoughts crystallized into resolve ringing true within, heart beating steadily louder than doubts ever could, it happened. A knock echoed through silence, breaking tension hanging thickly around us. A moment frozen in time where choices collided head-on, forcing confrontation unavoidable, now standing right before doorstep, beckoning toward unknown future ahead, filled possibilities yet undiscovered. The knock resonated through the hallway, a stark reminder of the tension that had built between us. I stood frozen, caught in the web of my own choices. The door felt like a boundary between two worlds, one filled with the familiar weight of my marriage and the other, an uncharted territory of longing and uncertainty. I took a breath, steadying myself as I approached the door. Each step echoed in my mind, a reminder of the conversations I had avoided. The knock came again, more insistent this time, urging me to confront what lay beyond. I opened it slowly, revealing my husband standing there, his expression unreadable. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice steady yet laced with an undercurrent of something deeper. I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The air felt charged as he crossed the threshold into our home, a space that had become increasingly foreign to us both. I gestured toward the living room, where the soft glow of evening light filtered through the curtains. "I know things have been strained," he began, taking a seat on the edge of our worn sofa. "But I think we need to address what's been happening between us." My heart raced at his words. Did he suspect? Did he know about my growing connection with his colleague? The thought twisted in my stomach like a knot tightening with each passing moment. I've been thinking about how we could bring some excitement back into our lives, he continued, his gaze steady on mine. You mentioned wanting more variety in our relationship. The irony hung heavy between us. He was suggesting something I had already sought elsewhere. Yet here was an opportunity, a chance to explore what revitalization could mean for us without acknowledging the shadows lurking in my heart. Yes, I replied cautiously, unsure how to navigate this conversation without revealing too much. I think we could try something new. He leaned back slightly, as if relieved by my response but also wary. There's a festival coming up next month, the Portland Rose Festival. It's vibrant and lively. Maybe we could go together and rekindle some of what we've lost? I hesitated at first but felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Perhaps this festival could serve as a backdrop for rediscovery, a way to peel back layers that had formed over years of neglect. That sounds nice, I said finally, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. As we talked about plans for the festival, the food stalls and music filling the streets, I felt an unsettling shift within myself. My thoughts drifted back to him, the colleague whose presence sparked something alive inside me during mundane office meetings and late-night work sessions. What would happen if they crossed paths? Would they sense the unspoken tension? Or would it reveal itself in ways I couldn't control? Just then, another knock broke through my spiraling thoughts, this one sharper than before. My husband glanced toward the door with curiosity mixed with concern. I'll get it, I said quickly, rising from my seat before he could respond. Opening the door revealed my colleague standing there, unexpected yet somehow fitting given how intertwined our lives had become recently. His expression shifted from surprise to something more guarded as he caught sight of my husband seated behind me. Hey, he said casually, but there was an edge in his voice that hinted at recognition of our delicate situation. Hi, I replied awkwardly, feeling exposed under both their gazes, one filled with concern and another with intrigue. I was just stopping by to see if you wanted to grab coffee, he continued, glancing at me before shifting his attention back to my husband. But it looks like you're busy. My husband straightened slightly but remained silent. Tension hung thickly in the air between them as they sized each other up without words spoken aloud. Actually, I interjected hastily, we were just discussing plans for the Rose Festival next month. The mention of the festival seemed to diffuse some tension momentarily. They exchanged glances that communicated more than words ever could, a silent acknowledgement of boundaries and unspoken feelings swirling beneath surface-level pleasantries. Sounds fun, my colleague replied smoothly while maintaining eye contact with me longer than necessary before tearing himself away from whatever thoughts lingered behind those dark eyes. Well, my husband said, finally breaking through this impasse, I should get going then. He stood up abruptly as if eager to escape whatever uncertainty lingered in this room now thickened by secrets shared only among three people present yet bound by silence surrounding them all too well. Maybe see you at work tomorrow? My colleague offered lightly before turning towards me one last time, an invitation wrapped in layers only understood by those who dared tread into gray areas where emotions blurred lines drawn clearly once upon a time when life was simpler than it feels now. As they exchanged farewells filled with undertones neither acknowledged openly, I felt torn between two worlds, one promising stability while another beckoned adventure filled with unknowns yet discovered. After closing the door behind him following his departure, I turned back toward where my husband stood looking out through window panes framing Portland's skyline bathed golden hues reflecting fading daylight illuminating shadows cast across walls once familiar now steeped unfamiliarity. What did you think? I asked cautiously hoping for clarity amidst confusion spiraling around us both like leaves caught swirling winds outside dancing freely unaware paths diverging just moments away. He hesitated before responding slowly, it's complicated. Complicated indeed. That word echoed hauntingly within me as realization dawned upon understanding neither man held all pieces needed make sense this tangled web we'd woven together over years spent navigating life's unpredictable twists turns leaving behind remnants longing, fulfillment somewhere lost along way. As night deepened outside, I felt weight pressing down upon shoulders burdened choices made yet unmade lingering just beyond reach awaiting resolution inevitable. And so there we sat, two souls adrift caught within currents swirling around us fueled desire seeking authenticity while clinging tightly old ties binding hearts once united now frayed edges threatening unraveling completely. In moments like these, the uncertainty became palpable, decisions loomed large casting shadows across future paths stretching endlessly ahead beckoning towards horizons unknown. The coffee shop buzzed with its usual energy, a symphony of clinking cups and murmured conversations. Yet, I sat in a bubble of silence, my thoughts racing. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, each option morphing into a heavy stone in my gut. My husband's offer to explore variety lingered in the air like steam from the espresso machine, thick and suffocating. Across the table, my colleague's eyes sparkled with mischief as he recounted another mundane office incident. His laughter was infectious, but it struck me as hollow against the backdrop of my inner turmoil. I had sought excitement in his company, but now it felt like grasping at smoke, elusive and fleeting. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etching lines across his forehead. I managed a nod, though my heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. The choice before me felt monumental, a fork in the road leading to two very different lives. One path promised stability and familiarity, the other beckoned with chaos and passion. The vibrant Portland Festival was just days away, an event that had always brought joy to our lives. It was where we'd first met, where laughter mingled with music under twinkling lights. I had envisioned attending with my husband, rekindling our connection amidst the festivities. But now that vision felt tainted by secrets and shadows. "Want to grab a drink after work?" he suggested, his tone casual yet laced with something deeper. I hesitated. "I'm not sure that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Just two friends enjoying an evening out," he replied, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed casually. But I knew better than to dismiss the implications of such an invitation. Each interaction felt like a thread woven into an intricate tapestry of deceit, one that could unravel at any moment. As I left the cafe, I wandered through the bustling streets of Portland, watching couples share intimate moments amidst the festival preparations around me. A pang of longing twisted inside me for what once was, a time when love felt effortless and uncomplicated. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from my husband asking if we could talk later that evening. My heart raced again, not from excitement but from dread at what revelations might unfold during our conversation. The hours dragged on until night fell, casting long shadows across our living room as I waited for him to arrive home. The air felt charged as if anticipating something monumental. When he finally walked through the door, I caught a glimpse of his weary expression. It mirrored my own inner conflict. He set his briefcase down and approached me slowly as if weighing each step carefully. "I've been thinking," he began softly, searching for the right words while avoiding direct eye contact. "About us?" I prompted gently. He nodded slowly but didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned toward the window where city lights twinkled against the dark sky like distant stars, beautiful yet unattainable. "I know things haven't been easy between us," he said finally. "But I want to try again, to breathe life back into our marriage." His words hung heavy between us. They were both an olive branch and a challenge wrapped in one simple statement. Did he really mean it? Or was this just another attempt to placate me while remaining blissfully ignorant of my secret? "What do you mean by try again?" My voice trembled slightly as uncertainty crept into my heart. "Let's explore new experiences together," he suggested tentatively, a phrase echoing back to our earlier discussions about variety. A bitter laugh escaped me involuntarily. How could he suggest this without knowing? You want us to open up our marriage? He glanced at me sharply, then sighed deeply as if bracing himself for impact. I think we need something different, something that brings us closer rather than pushes us apart. My mind whirled at his suggestion. Could this really be an opportunity for growth? Or would it only serve to deepen the chasm between us? The thought of continuing on this path filled me with dread, yet so did abandoning it entirely. Just then, an unexpected knock echoed through the house, a sound that shattered our fragile moment together like glass breaking against concrete. Who could that be? My voice was barely above a whisper as apprehension gripped me tightly once more. Before either of us could react further, I opened the door to find my colleague standing there unexpectedly, the very man who had become both an escape and a complication in my life over recent weeks. What are you doing here? I stammered out loud enough for both men to hear, the tension palpable as they exchanged glances over my shoulder filled with unspoken questions. I came by because, his voice trailed off uncertainly before continuing more boldly, I wanted to see you. My husband shifted slightly beside me. I could sense his disapproval radiating off him even without turning around fully to gauge his expression. This isn't a good time, I said hurriedly while trying desperately to keep panic from spilling over into outright chaos within our home, a sanctuary now threatened by secrets laid bare before us all too suddenly. I'm sorry, he replied earnestly but didn't move away from where he stood rooted outside our threshold. The line drawn starkly between two worlds colliding head-on within moments' notice now looming ominously above us, all three caught up in this web spun tied around each other yet so fragile beneath its surface. In that instant, my heart racing faster than ever, I realized how precarious everything truly was, one choice away from unraveling completely or binding tighter still. And there we stood, three lives intertwined beneath Portland's night sky filled with stars above, but all too aware that some ties might never mend despite desperate attempts made along their lengths.